Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I hope it's a good one. Today, we're going to begin with a story that really reflects the continuing struggle that Americans of all age groups and across many income levels are wrestling with today. And it is the ongoing impacts of inflation. Because between the years 2021 and 2025, inflation actually increased the cost of most goods and services by 20 to 25%. And what that has done, it's impacting retirement savings. There's a new study from the Employee Financial Wellness Report by Payroll Integrations. We're going to look at that. And also another survey from Allianz Life, which is really an eye-opener. So when you're sitting down with a potential reverse mortgage borrower, be aware that they may have cut off their contributions to their retirement account, perhaps in the last 2 or 3 years of their working career. And that is going to, of course, put them in a position where maybe they do need to look to other assets. In the study, Under Financial Strain on the Rise, it says it reveals the workforce is under increasing financial pressure. Many employees are now tapping into retirement savings as a lifeline, with 38% of workers saying that they have withdrawn funds from their retirement accounts at some point. And this prevalence of withdrawals points to a systemic financial insecurity in our country. Workers that are coping with emergencies and high cost of living are facing insufficient safety nets, such as a savings account. But it's most acute amongst the younger generation. Half of Gen Z workers, 46%, have already tapped into their retirement accounts versus 31% of millennials. It's also noted that these withdrawals are not just for splurges, but they're for urgent needs. 37% of withdrawals cover unexpected emergencies, and 42% of Gen Z withdrawals went toward paying off debt. In fact, 1 in 3 employees say they plan to tap into their retirement account or rate it again in the coming year. And here we have a chart showing the breakdown of the withdrawal behavior amongst generational cohorts from Gen Z all the way through the baby boomer generation. And the reasons are varied when it comes to the use of these funds that they're taking out of their retirement account. Again, most of them are unexpected expenses or financial shocks, such as major home or car repairs, and it indicates that for many, a 401k or similar account has become an emergency fund of sorts, or perhaps you could even say it's the new savings account, which is not a good situation. And some employees are so burdened by debt that they're using these withdrawals to manage their debt balances. 37% of those tapping into their retirement account say it was for an emergency expense, 19% say it was for housing-related costs, and 16% say it was to pay off debt. So those are the 3 primary reasons that people are making withdrawals from their 401k. And you can see the breakdown again by generation for those categories of emergency expenses, housing costs, paying off debt, or increased cost of living. Which, by the way, millennials, 22% are using these withdrawals just to make ends meet day to day. Next, we're going to look at the Allianz Life study and see what nuggets we have there. But there's a surprising overlap between these 2 studies. We'll see that in just a moment. It says 51% of employees have either stopped or reduced their retirement savings contributions in the past 6 months due to the current economic environment. And nearly 60% are prioritizing setting money aside for healthcare expenses over retirement contributions. And 68% of respondents say that despite the stock market reaching record highs in 2025, their personal financial situation is not reflecting this economic prosperity. And that really speaks to the difference of who is really prospering in those economies. Is it Wall Street or Main Street? And we definitely feel like it needs to be a little bit more Main Street so Americans can make ends meet. But here is the overlap with payroll integrations. Allianz data shows that 47% of respondents say that they've dipped into their retirement savings during that same time period. So this is essentially confirming what payroll integrations findings had. All which would seem to indicate that Americans are not being careless with their retirement, but they're rather being financially cornered thanks to inflation and wages that have not kept up with the cost of living. There are many decisions that we have to make on our lifetimes, and some of them are major, such as who you marry, if you're going to have children or not. But another is where you choose to retire. That can have long-lasting financial implications. And we're going to look at a recent column from Wallet Hub, and it's looking at the best and, yes, the worst places to retire here in the good old US of A. The study compared all 50 states across 46 key indicators, very detailed, including affordability, healthcare, quality of life, tax friendliness, and social support, and retirement conditions do vary widely from state to state. This heat map helps us just to better visualize which are the best and worst states to retire, and the lighter the color, the worse the state is for retirement, based on those 46 factors. Here are the 5 states to retire in, the best ranked ones. First is Wyoming. That comes as a bit of a surprise. Then there's Florida, South Dakota, Colorado, and Minnesota. Chip Lupo, one of the contributing analysts to this paper, says that retirement is supposed to be relaxing, but it can also be incredibly stressful, given that it typically puts people on a fixed income, which may not be enough for them to live comfortably. As a result, the best states for retirees are those that have low taxes and a low cost of living to help the retirees' budget stretch as far as possible. Also, having access to excellent Medicare and homemaking services is crucial, especially for people who do not plan to retire in close proximity to their families. And this is a detailed breakdown of the 50 states based on affordability, quality of life, and healthcare. Now, you can sort by either of these. So if we click here and sort by quality of life, then we're going to see that Florida ranks number 1. And if we click on affordability, we're going to see Wyoming comes in as a winner with a lower cost of living. So we've included a link to this column so you can look at it yourselves. And perhaps this column could be useful for any potential HECM for purchase clients that are looking or considering relocation. This could be a great tool. When adjusting for the cost of living, Oklahoma comes out the clear winner. And of course, Hawaii is a very expensive state. It is ranked the lowest when it comes to affordability. Louisiana has one of the lowest costs for in-home services as reflected in this graphic, and South Dakota has one of the highest costs of in-home services. Quite interesting. Next, we have the taxpayer ranking and what percentage of the workforce is 65 or older. You can see that New Hampshire has the nation's oldest workforce. That's interesting. And West Virginia, the youngest. Then we have arts and culture, the museums per capita, and theaters. And then the percentage of the population that's 65 and older. You would think that Florida would actually lead that ranking, but no, it is the state of Maine. And the lowest is the state of Utah. Yes, quite a few younger individuals there. Then there's life expectancy. It appears that there are indeed benefits to living in paradise, as Hawaii ranks number 1 in the findings. It's important to note that WalletHub's rankings are not just about sunshine or climate and tax favorability. It's about a number of factors that are important to weigh in retirement, especially if you're going to be relocating. And a lot of that will center on the cost of goods and services. So you're looking at the cost of living just generally, and then the access to healthcare and the expense of that healthcare in one's non-working years. This next story comes to us from Oregon Live, and it's columnist Liz Weston, a name that may be familiar to many of you, our viewers, and she's addressing an issue that I hear more often than you would expect, especially from adult children, and it's dealing with aging parents in a complicated housing situation. Complicated by what? Yes, a reverse mortgage. So let's dive in and see what this particular situation really is. And this story comes to us from Oregon Live, and columnist Liz Weston is addressing a reader's concern about the complicated process of settling an estate, especially her father's home that does have a reverse mortgage on it. And now the father has actually moved out due to health conditions. So here's a scenario. You have a 93-year-old father with a reverse mortgage, and he lived there until recently and with his adult son and friend. But last summer, the family had to relocate Dad into assisted living, and soon after that, that so-called family friend locked the son out of the house and has effectively been squatting there ever since. So the family hired an attorney. Judges reviewed the case, but months later, they still don't know the outcome. And even if the squatter was eventually removed, that home is going to need extensive repairs, so many that the heirs doubt that the sale would generate enough funds to pay what's owed on the reverse mortgage. At best, they might recover $5,000 to $10,000. And the reader asked the question that you as reverse mortgage professionals already know the answer to, which is what happens if the balance on the reverse mortgage is more than what the home can be sold for? Are they financially on the hook? Weston rightly points to the non-recourse clause, saying that heirs are not personally responsible if the home doesn't sell for enough funds to repay the loan, and that's built into the structure of the loan itself. If there is equity left over, then the heirs can keep it. But once that squatter issue is resolved, then the family would likely be signing a deed in lieu of foreclosure, which really speeds up the process and avoids the cost, time, and stress of listing and selling a distressed property when they know that it's not going to cover the loan balance. Something that industry professionals such as you watching know very well is that this situation is not a unique one. In fact, we see this happen and it plays out across the nation where the family is dealing with a messy and complicated settlement of a home or an estate with a reverse mortgage. But even worse is when these homes are actually vacant. Yes, the last borrower has passed away and the family has removed the contents from the home of personal items. Those properties can sit idle or completely vacant for months and oftentimes even for years before they're put up for auction and sold. And what that leads to is a degradation of the actual asset, which is backing the reverse mortgage loan, which only increases the strain and increases the likelihood that there will be an FHA insurance claim filed on that property.